Hey guys, Beta 10.1 is finally here, along with the long-awaited button that allows anyone with the full self-driving package to request to download it, as long as they agree to have their driving monitored by Tesla insurance metrics and meet certain safety requirements. So the button actually did come out when Elon said it would, but based on my experience so far, there might be a thing or two that didn't quite make it into this update. Let's start out with the good though. Elon said this version would have much improved creeping behavior, and so far, that seems pretty accurate. One thing I noticed right away is that this version seems to go past stopping lines to get better visibility as soon as it enters the intersection, instead of stopping right on the line and then slowly creeping out. Someone on my Twitter feed commented on that last clip saying I should have done a bug report there because it's illegal and if a cop was having a bad day he could pull me over. Well, let me tell you, Twitter person, you're wrong. Actually, you're technically right. Stopping over the line is illegal, but kind of just like rolling really slow through stop signs, it's how everyone on the road drives and how others expect you to behave on the road to stay predictable and manage traffic flow. So, in my opinion, this is a very welcome change and it makes me feel like a lot less of a nuisance in intersections when there are people behind me. And I tried my best to get the car to shift into reverse. I promise you I did. And sometimes it even kind of seemed like it wanted to.
Come on, do it. Do it. Do it. Come on.
I feel like the neural network capable of reversing might even be in here, but it just isn't allowed to yet. I can't wait for this ability though. I think it'll make the FSD beta much safer, and it being able to protect itself after making mistakes like a human would is going to be an absolute game changer. And speaking of being safe and protecting yourself, there's a way to do that off the road as well with this video's sponsor, Private Internet Access. Virtual private networks protect you by changing your IP address and rerouting your internet traffic through an encrypted tunnel, which hides your online activity from your internet service provider, network administrators, and even government censors. Private Internet Access stands out in the VPN crowd because they're the world's most transparent VPN, with over 30 million downloads and a strict no logs data policy, which has been proven multiple times in court, and which can also be easily verified because they're 100% open source. That's the main reason I chose them as my VPN provider, even before having this sponsorship. It's available for all platforms and protects up to 10 devices at the same time, which is awesome because I get to put it on all my wife's devices too. And although my wife and I use the VPN in completely different ways, PIA has us covered as they're also the most customizable. So whether I'm using it for torrenting or to watch region-locked content, or she just wants to get rid of some ads and be protected, we're both covered. The ability to watch region-locked content from all major streaming services is also a game changer for me when I'm at the supercharger, and PIA makes getting all that set up super easy. You can get 83% off and a 30-day money-back guarantee using the special link in the description and try it completely risk-free. I think it comes out to something like $2.08 a month, which is well worth it. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring this video and letting me watch Rick and Morty again. So I basically went out with the goal of making the FSD beta shift into reverse, because I couldn't wait to actually see it for myself, and I thought that going to my usual unprotected left route might just do the trick. Also, probably a good time to remind you that the 360 camera you're seeing on the top of the screen is mounted in the same area of the car as the B-pillar cameras. So what you're seeing up there should be pretty similar to what Autopilot's able to see. Pretty nice creeping behavior so far. I like that it continues moving forward even when the other car was turning left in front of us. Man, pretty tough break with traffic right now for Autopilot, especially with this being our first attempt. Just can't seem to find a gap right now. But Autopilot does seem to be able to spot out the other cars approaching from pretty far away and stays patient through all this. Alright, a gap does appear from both directions, and Autopilot takes the right-of-way. Pretty nicely done. Alright, gonna do another unprotected left starting from the opposite side of the street, and it's terrible to say this, but part of me really wants Autopilot to screw up so I can see if it's capable of reversing. Looks like a little bit of creeping forward here, even though there was some traffic visible from the right, which was nice. Then just look at the confidence of this maneuver, even pulling out before either of those cars had cleared our path. I had a little chuckle in the car because I thought that one was pretty impressive. Definitely much more confident in this update, like for sure. I was thinking they might actually tone things down a notch or two to try to make the car less aggressive before wide release, but it actually seems like they might have done the complete opposite. Like right now, for example, we never went below 2 miles an hour that entire time. It just creeped all the way through that stop sign and went when it was clear, just like a human. A lot of people obviously going to be upset about that, but I say bravo. Alright, and this was the last unprotected turn I did before I went off to find some other challenges for this version. Autopilot creeping a little bit too far out for comfort here. You can see on the path planner that it was braking at about the same time I did, but I am basically creeped out to the absolute max distance before people have to start moving over lanes to accommodate me. So I did not feel comfortable and felt like I had to take over in this particular situation. Looked like the beta was planning on doing the same thing I did, but when things are that close, I want to be in control. So it didn't seem like unprotected lefts were exactly getting me into the situations I wanted, so I decided parking lots were my next best shot of getting the beta to shift into reverse. I feel like parking lots are very tough for the beta to deal with, mostly because there aren't any lane lines or a clear direction it should go. Also, kind of all rules kind of go out the window in parking lots. But I feel like it kind of lets us see under the hood of the neural network a bit in some of its decision making. Full disclaimer, parking lot support has not come to the FSD beta yet. What you're seeing here is it trying to navigate through this lot based on what it knows about city streets. So far though, I can definitely tell you if you've been looking at the steering wheel, although there was a couple of rough patches back there, overall so much smoother than any of the previous versions when there's not clearly defined lanes. So stopping a little bit too early for this stop sign, and also we're slightly creeping to the left as we're creeping forward for visibility. The car approaching from the left then wants to get in here. She could fit, although it's a tight squeeze, but since autopilot's hugging the left a bit, she didn't want to, and I can understand. I did try to let it go as long as I possibly could because it would have been a great time to reverse, but it just never happened, and I did have to take over. So putting autopilot into another kind of awkward situation where I'm over the line and kind of already creeped out, and the car across from us puts us into the same situation that autopilot did for that poor lady. He is in the center of the lane and we have to squeeze through this little tiny gap. There's also a curb to the right, so super tight here. Autopilot did have the right idea to straighten out to clear the curb and everything, but if you heard that bing, that means it's less than 12 inches away, and any maneuvers that are that close, I'd rather do myself for now, even though it was doing the correct thing. I'll actually be fast forwarding through the majority of this, or at least until we get into the next parking lot. This is exactly 4x speed, so if you want to watch this part in real time, you can always play this video back on YouTube at quarter speed. I decided I wanted to keep testing in parking lots because that's where I figured I'd have the best chance of it getting into reverse. Or at least getting into tricky situations fairly quickly, which I think you'll see later in this video was definitely the case. Had some success there. Some pretty interesting situations where I was sure the beta wanted to reverse. But I'm just afraid about how long some of my videos are becoming, especially some of the later ones, so the majority of this and others is fast forward. But people also can't accuse me of cherry picking clips this way, right? This way it condenses the entire drive nicely, and the people who want to slow it down to analyze every detail can still do so. Alright, turning into the Home Depot parking lot here. I think I have the navigation route just setting right into the middle of this parking lot. So we'll see how the beta does. So fairly smooth coming in, I'd say, but then once the path planner and those pedestrians ahead intersect, it does give a little bit of a hard brake. Then once the planner clears the pedestrians, it has a bit more confidence, and does clear the curb as well, which is nice to see it kind of counter-steering for that. So not exactly comfortable through here. The FSD beta is kind of overly cautious with pedestrians sometimes, which honestly is probably how a self-driving car should behave anyways. At least for now. But if there was a car behind me, it probably could have made him pretty upset. So new navigation route is in, and we're just waiting for the car to plan a path there. I have a feeling that people rear-ending self-driving cars is going to be a pretty big thing. Person in front of us makes this turn way too wide, actually doesn't see us this entire time, and waves her hand at me like, oh yeah, sorry. If you play that back, I actually thought it was pretty interesting. When she first comes into the corner, you can see autopilot still continuing forward pretty confidently because it thinks she's going to tighten her turn. But then when she doesn't, you see autopilot hit the brakes pretty hard. I think other vehicles' path planner is being used more and more, and later in some of these parking lot clips, you're really going to see that when we have some tight corridors and oncoming traffic. So far, though, I actually think it's doing pretty well in these parking lots. I mean, there has been a few disengagements. It's not perfect, don't get me wrong. But if you're looking version to version, like, man, this thing's really impressive. It even makes the correct decision to make a wide right here to get onto the road, even though there are basically 2 right turns it could have made. So overall, doing fairly well, except for right this second, baby. You can see that path planner, it just wants to go back into the parking lot, even though the navigation route was straight. I figured I might try to help it out and set the new destination right back into this parking lot, but it does not calculate a route fast enough, and I do have to take over to get it back on the right track. Again, going to be fast forwarding through this part, even though this part of the video shows pretty great behavior with pedestrians that are randomly crossing the street. But there are better clips ahead that show kind of similar behavior, and since I'm doing everything chronologically, I'm just trying to get to the good stuff as soon as possible. I promise you it is worth it. So this little drive through the parking lot does unfortunately require an intervention right towards the end here. 100 feet from our destination, I reroute to try to make it continue going. But it doesn't reroute quite fast enough and kind of gets stuck at this spot right here where it wants me to use the accelerator or the cruise control stalk to continue. I left it here for a while. It did not continue on its own. So let's go ahead and get into the next clip. There wasn't quite enough unpredictable stuff and chaos happening in the last parking lot, so I headed to the Wal-Mart parking lot, where there is always crazy stuff going on. So we do have a car off to the left-hand side that's kind of parked next to those barriers going in the opposite direction. But the beta is able to see that car is parked and not consider it as an incoming car and proceeds. Then I think with that little break there, we get an interesting insight into the path planner where it's trying to figure out if it can squeeze through this incoming car and this parked car off to the right. Slowly creeps through here very cautiously. Then the Model 3 pulls out a bit wide and it has to deal with the same thing. See, these are the situations I like. Pedestrians walking out from the right here. Autopilot has a ton to deal with right now. We are kind of in the middle of this and this making some room for the Mercedes. More pedestrians off to the right that may or may not walk in front of us. Who knows at this point? Looks like she's about to walk right in front of us. Nope, does a 360. Oh yes, Walmart parking lot is definitely the place to be for testing this thing out. Doing really, really well through here so far, though. I must give the FSD beta credit. The only thing I can fault it for right now is that it has its left-hand turn signal on right now, which is for this upcoming turn up here, I guess. But it kind of confuses everybody around it. Like, people are expecting me to turn left, so turn signals have been a problem for quite a while. I hope that does get taken over by a neural network in some future update, because right now it just seems kind of hard-coded. Like, right up here, I guess, is what it was signaling for. Really no need to signal right there, though. Then we are approaching this stop sign where we have to make kind of a sweeping right to remain inside the parking lot. These people to our left do not have a stop sign. They are not supposed to be stopping right now. They're supposed to be just continuing forward. Autopilot does take some initiative and is like, okay, if you're not going, I guess I'll go, and slowly starts creeping. Then this car just decides to go out of the blue. This is just too good. Autopilot waits, then the last car in the lineup not only pulls out from the right-hand turn lane and decides that he wants to turn left, but stops like the other cars. Autopilot beeping at me, telling me to put my hands on the steering wheel, probably for good reason. tries to actually pass these cars. I'm sitting here winching like, what are you doing? I feel like autopilot is like visibly frustrated with the situation right now and is like, okay, if there's no rules, then there's no rules. Let's go. But no, seriously, we're approaching the end of the destination, so I wanted to keep this clip going, so I just tried to put in a new one as fast as possible. And believe it or not, for the remainder of this clip, nothing particularly noteworthy happens. Like, don't get me wrong, it's very impressive that we're navigating through these parking lots so well. And I have a sneaking suspicion there was some pretty major behind-the-hood updates to account for some situations like this. But obviously the FSD beta still does not support parking lots, and I believe it's just using all of its city streets knowledge to get around here. I wanted to let this clip play out until it ends. This one ends with the car trying to leave the parking lot, but just like last time, I wasn't about to let that happen, and I put it right back into the parking lot. So you can see right after I disengage, I had the pin dropped in the parking lot, but it was trying to like navigate me around the entire neighborhood to get to it. So I did disengage here and just decided to go to a different section, more towards the upper part there where it wasn't exactly marked, to see how it would do. Alright, we are at the part of the parking lot where I mentioned, where as you can see on the navigation route, autopilot wants to follow its path that it has in its map, I guess. But I did decide to go down some other routes to see how it does when it can't rely on the map. Alright, autopilot's on. It hasn't had time to recalculate a route, and you can just see that path planner snake just going kind of crazy right now. Doesn't really know which way to go. I think it sees this car move to our left and was like, oh, okay, that probably seems like a way that I can go. You can see it also considers planning another path to the left, which would have got it back to the mapped route, but it doesn't, and it actually decides to turn right. And it also ignores all those nicely painted lines to those dock doors and goes down this narrow corridor. This surprised me quite a bit, actually, but yeah, I guess let's just see where this thing takes us. You can see it stop and like consider where to go right now. Like it was going to go to the right, and it's like, well, no, I guess there's nowhere I can go over there, and just continue moving to the left. Then we have an approaching truck. Autopilot ducks behind all these little carts over here and just handles it like an absolute professional. This was ridiculously good. That really showed the path planner we saw during AI Day really, really well right there. I mean, that couldn't have been any more perfect. And not only the path planner, but what this thing just did where it doesn't have a route. You know what I mean? Like, there's no navigation route. It's never seen any of this stuff before. It's just looking out into the world and figuring out what to do. This is so different than any other approach. I don't know how I would feel if I was like Waymo or any of those other companies that just use these really high definition maps and LiDAR and stuff that kind of like program their cars to move through a video game like Grand Theft Auto, but I'd probably be shaking in my boots, man. This thing is getting really, really good. Don't mean to poke fun at Waymo or Blue Cruise or Super Cruise or whatever else, all those systems that use LiDAR maps to drive around. I just think you got to appreciate this. I mean, this car can be dropped off pretty much anywhere and try to navigate through the area. It doesn't need to be updated every few days when something changes or construction happens or they repaint lane markings and stuff. It'll just look out into the world and figure it out like a human would. That is completely different than every other approach. I mean, completely. Right now, by the way, I did not even see those pedestrians. They were obstructed by my B-pillar the entire time. I had no idea why it was braking there. That was a situation where this system saw more than I did, at least in this particular case. I am kind of just in disbelief over all this. The updates that have been coming out recently, like when you just get in the car and you drive around, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's making some mistakes. Seems like the same thing as before. But once you really put it into these make it or break it situations, I feel like autopilot's really doing better and better. Obviously, some tough situations right now. Pedestrians walking around all over the road. And autopilot kind of has to balance being confident and making it through versus like being really, really safe around all these pedestrians, because everybody is unpredictable all the time. But it seems to be doing it really, really crazy. Luckily this time these cars don't stop improperly at this intersection, so autopilot does fine and just kind of continues right on through. I believe the navigation route actually has us making a right up here, kind of where that car turned in, and then making another left to get to the end of the parking lot. This section of the parking lot I saw when I was passing here previously is closed off though. I think for like COVID shots or something. So let's go ahead and see what the beta does. Autopilot looks like it's just kind of surveying the situation and trying to plan a path however it's going to fit through here, but that's not happening. Then look, it comes to a complete stop and turns the steering wheel to the right.
Come on, do it.
Tell me
it
it doesn't want to back up right now.
Do it. Come on.
I mean, this car wants to back up. I feel like the neural network that's capable of backing up this car is in here. It's just not allowed to shift into reverse. Like, I can see it, I can feel it. It wants to so bad. I may have had a drink or two in the course of editing this video. I hope I'm not going too crazy here, but I felt it when I was in the car. This car wanted to do a 3-point turn and reroute, and I cannot wait for the point where it's able to do this by itself. I was so excited, so excited to test that out in this new update, and I seriously feel like this is so capable, but unfortunately I could just never get the car to back up. Dang Elon and his Elon time with these deadlines. Like, of course I don't want to give the autopilot team a hard time. They will release the feature when it's ready, but I just think that I'm really excited to be straight about it. The ability to back up is going to allow the car to drive in so many more situations and correct itself in so many different ways. It already does a fairly good job with some unpredictable stuff, like this guy probably should not have pulled out in front of us, but autopilot's able to handle it fairly well. But once it starts being able to back up, when it, once it stops getting stuck, we're really going to see some crazy stuff happen. I think that's what's basically going to happen, is the car is just going to get stuck less and less and less and less and less, and then suddenly we're going to see them picking people up from airports. Like, this is how it works. Every single firmware update, the car gets better and better and better. All right, I need to cut myself off. I'm getting a bit out of control here. So a brief summary. I am kind of conflicted. I thought this update was going to make autopilot handle kind of like maybe safer, where it would like confirm unprotected turns and all that, and kind of like be ready for a public release. But no, they are not limiting this software in any way. They are going after real full self-driving, not just like only right-hand turns or, avoiding the hard parts, and none of that is happening. They are releasing this software to the masses as is. So if you are going to be getting the beta pretty soon, which you might be if you are a safe driver and part of those statistics, all I can tell you is please keep your hand on the wheel so you can feel what the car is doing at all times, and be very safe to let this technology continue to happen, because this is going to save so many lives. It really is. The second I don't have to drive myself to work and I can just edit these videos in my back seat is going to be just, oh my gosh. I just cannot wait for this. So, yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys. The car was stuck right here. I had a new navigation route in, and it got like halfway down here and then just decided it didn't want to drive anymore. So this is where this one ended. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you guys. Please don't forget to like the video and leave a comment if you really liked it. I read everything. Thank you so much again. You guys are the best. Bye.